Hello and welcome to Recalibrating for Hybrid Work. This is Dave Michels from Talking Points. I am an independent uh, industry analyst covering enterprise communications. And today I've got with us two guests in an intimate panel discussion on hybrid work. We've got Duncan Ward and Gary Sorrentino, both the pillars of our industry. So I'll let them both introduce themselves briefly. Duncan, who are you?
Okay, yeah, good afternoon. I'm Duncan Ward. I'm the Chief Executive for Enreach UK. Enreach UK is a fairly new name. We rebranded about 14 months ago. Collaboration of at the moment, 15 different companies across Europe, but we're very much in the cloud PBX space, providing our own cloud telephony solution, mobile, broadband. We're very much in this space. And as I say, I'm responsible for the UK during these very exciting times. Nice to meet you.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. Gary, who are you?
So my name is Gary Sorrentino. I'm the Global Deputy CIO for a company called Zoom. As most people know, Zoom is started out as a meeting platform, and today we're a full UCaaS platform. My background was about 42 years in technology, mostly on Wall Street. In 2019, I started with Zoom. I met this person called Eric, and he said, "Why don't you come aboard?" And to tell you the truth, the last 2 years of Zoom helping clients all over the world has probably been the most rewarding of my career.
Fantastic. So we're going through a lot of changes in enterprise communications, and of course, the nature of this discussion is around hybrid work. But I think hybrid work is a little confusing for a lot of people because I think a lot of people consider hybrid work to be just simply a form or a fancy word for work from home. But we've been working at work from home for years, ever since voice over IP, or you could even say before that. Duncan, why don't you give us a concept or a definition of what you think hybrid work is?
Well, I think hybrid really is where the world has changed. People have talked a lot about, people working more collaboratively, having your home life, your work life, and that balance that we all talk about and try and get right so many times. But I think truly now, particularly with what I guess COVID has forced us into and taken a few companies by surprise, is the difference now, I think, with hybrid working is the capabilities that are out there in the marketplace to enable businesses to collaborate effectively, bringing meaningful human intervention and contact between individuals wherever you may be. And I think that ability to work from home, be effective, and continue to serve your customers in a way that you would expect them to be served within the structure of a business environment, to be able to do that wherever, however, and on whatever device. We're now very much living in that space where that is now an absolute possibility and capability.
Interesting. So Gary, you mentioned earlier that Zoom started as a meetings company and moved into a UCaaS company. Is hybrid part of that transition, or just was it always a hybrid company, or what's your take of hybrid? What's your definition?
So I think hybrid's a little more than just connecting, right? Hybrid work really means I've been home for 2 years, and as a person who got sent home, employees are now empowered in a different way, right? Now it's about where I want to work, when I want to work, and how I want to work. And I think a single modality like meeting can't serve the purpose going forward anymore. It really means, how can I get this full interface? How can I be collaborative? How can I chat? How can I be on the phone? How can I do webinars? How can I do the full set of services? Because we want to build equality regardless of where we are. And I think that's some of the things that happened before. Remember, how many times you walked into a conference room and there was a little audio conference device on the table, and there's 6 people in the room and 1 person on audio. We even forgot to say goodbye to the 1 person on audio because they weren't equal. There was no democratization, and it takes multiple modalities to do that today. And as Duncan said, it really is about raising that experience, making it so that regardless of where I am, I work the same.
So is what you're describing just user behavioral changes? Because with the pandemic, we heard about how people had to adapt their offices or hotel rooms to work remotely. Are there changes necessary at the office, Gary?
Clearly, right now we have to make major changes in the offices because here's what's going to happen. It used to be back in February 2019, I presented that 97% of the people work in the office and maybe 3% are remote. I actually said this, one of our analysts told us this, that by 2027, we'd get to about 7% of people working remote. Well, that happened overnight. But what's happened now is as people return to the office, they want a similar experience. Now, most of us have upgraded ourselves at home, right? The second thing is the days of one person not being there and the majority being in the office is going to be gone unless it's a planned event. And so what happens is when you come back into the office, I have to work as productive with people who are physically there as well as people who are virtually there. And before that wasn't possible. Before we treated the not in the office people as, what do you want to write on the whiteboard? I have to do it for you, right? Now we want them to be able to join. So you can't go back to the office and has everybody bring their laptops into the conference room with headphones. We lose the synergy we went there for. If you make everybody go back to their desk and take the call individually, well, isn't that home? So today, people need to rethink their office space because we got to bring parity, collaboration. We got to bring that back regardless of where people want to work. And it's their choice now.
So, Duncan, what are your thoughts on how do the offices actually change?
Well, I agree with many things as Gary's saying, but I think it's also the behavioural change is still a long way to go. I still think there is an element of surprise. I think again when the next COVID, everybody work from home hits again, which it will, I'm sure, time and time again. We're far more prepared now to be able to operate from home, but I still think that we are set up in a temporary environment. I think true hybrid working, where you can and you have the full facility, whilst you've got the technology available to you, I still think a number of companies need to understand and change their behaviours to see what is available so that they can have a level of business continuity. I still think, there is a large percentage has transferred across and adapted. I still think that some people think that it is temporary, but I think, as we'll all agree, it's something that's here to stay. Hybrid isn't going away. Offices will start to reduce in size and people will be expected to work from home for the permanent future. So I think the fact that technology enables it, I think what it's also enabled businesses to realise that they can be more effective working from home, sometimes less interruption. I don't mean necessarily people being cut off and shut off. You don't need to be. The technology will enable them to be as connected as they are as if they were in the office, but without the downtime, the standing around the coffee machine. They have, I think, the ability, certainly with working from home, adapting, as I said earlier on, your home life, your work life, and that kind of blend between the two. I think business efficiencies, as demonstrated, can be achieved with this hybrid working. So I think there's still an education to and for people to adapt and adopt. But I think it's certainly the way that this is where the marketplace is going to go over
So
the
you
coming
both,
years.
I guess, from your perspective, both been talking a lot about the actual meetings and having whether you're having a meeting with people in person or people that are distributed. But what about other than meetings? What about just hybrid work? When is it best to get work done at home? And what kinds of activities would you actually go into the office for? Duncan?
I think I agree with you. It's not just about meetings. I think I think it's more of a generalization. Yes, the ability to have meetings virtually is there, but I think it's also the ability. If I'm answering your question correctly, I think it's the ability to be able to serve your customer base effectively, whether you are working from home or not. And I think that's, again, is that people that have business grade broadband, for example. I'll give you an example the other day. When I was talking to I think it was the HMRC here in the UK, and it was that excuse, forgive me, but I'm working from home. The quality of my call may not be as you'd expect. Well, again, that's something that needs to change and people need to adapt. You need to have the same level of capability, whether you're working from home or you work in the office. The same ability to interact with your colleagues at home or in the office, to serve your customers. Your customer experience should be exactly the same, whether you're at home or in the office. There should be no difference. Whatever you choose to do, you get up in the morning, you go to the office, or you get up in the morning and go to your home office. The experience in the way that you operate and your effectiveness as an individual working for a business should be exactly the same. The tools are available, and it's just allowing people to adapt and start to utilize them.
Any additional thoughts on that, Gary?
Well, but it's not just about work and meetings, what we said. It is, those serendipitous moments do provide a lot. Meeting connections, look, I'm Zoom 2 years. I had the benefit of meeting a lot of Zoom people the first year I was here, the first week I was here. And since then, I haven't met anybody in person because we've been mostly remote. At the end of the day, we can't lose the fact that we want to build culture in companies. We want to be able to make sure that the junior employees are getting the face time that they need. We are doing a lot to substitute that. So there's still a need to go to a physical building. I met one company, they had a very unique slogan, and it was called W Cubed. And I said, okay, please explain that to me. He said, we go to work on Wednesday. That means that if you're going to go and you're going to commute into the office, do it on Wednesday because they wanted the most amount of people there, because there's nothing worse than me getting up on a Tuesday to meet Duncan in person and he's not there that day. Right? Because then that just means that I'm in the office talking to him when he's home where I could have been home or vice versa. So I think I do agree what he said. It is a cultural shift where people are now going to have to be, one, that place I go has a unique intention. And it may be that I'm meeting a client in person and that I need to make sure that I have the right people there. Great. But the second thing is I want to bond with people. I want to have those serendipitous moments. I want to make sure that the work that we have to do in person that is better being collaborative in person is done on a cadence. So it's going to take a little bit of discipline. It can't be that everybody gets up every morning and makes a decision carte blanche, because I can see right now groups are doing that group text at 6 o'clock in the morning. Who's going in? I am. I'm not. We don't go.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you hit on that, Gary. I think that we've proven during the pandemic that we can do your basic PowerPoint presentation very effectively, remotely or not. But it's these serendipitous moments that have been harder to capture. And so as we embraced hybrid work as a strategy rather than as a emergency, we have to make some changes. So with that, Gary, um, what are some of the warnings you might have for organizations that are hanging the shingle up saying we're going to be a hybrid work environment? What are things that they have to proactively address to make sure this is going to be successful?
I think they're going to have to really look at, okay, here's what my goal is. We teach people their job function. If you're an accountant, we teach you accounting. And if you're a technologist, we teach you coding. How do we teach people how to work going forward? And that's something we failed at. People like spreadsheets, they use 2% of the functionality of that product. At the end of the day, we really need to start training our students how to learn differently. And we need to train our office workers how to work differently and be more conscious of things going forward. Right now, we handle the pendulum very well. And as far as I'm concerned, prior to the pandemic, the pendulum was to the left. 97 sounds like 100 to me. People being in the office, okay? And then you got your normal people sick, vacation, and we learned to deal with that. We swung the pendulum to the other way, and everyone handles ends very well, okay? But how do we handle the middle? And I think that's where we need people to learn how to work. These type of jobs we would prefer you do from here. These type of jobs we would prefer you do from either choice. And I think if we don't teach people how to work, how to use the tools, it's incredible when you meet people. And I met a CEO one day, sorry to be long-winded on this answer, and he said, I want to do a fireside chat. Great. I brought up our immersive scenes and me and him were in a fireside chat. He said, oh, new feature from Zoom? I go, yeah, like 6 months ago. He called up his IT guy and said, I called Gary, I get an instant solution. I called you, you told me I needed to buy something else. The problem is we need to teach people how to use the tools that we've given them during the pandemic, and the right word is to exploit them to the maximum leverage, and then teach them where to use those tools, whether they're home or whether they're in the office.
I want to come back to you on that. I want to ask you about how do people learn about these features. But first, I want Duncan to respond about what kind of advice or thoughts on how a company should embrace hybrid work.
I think, just picking up on some of the things that Gary was saying, I think, what exists is a little bit of fear. I think, again, utilizing the tools and the capabilities that are sitting there, is people understanding how to use them. I think they probably do in the main, but there's a little bit of fear. Should I? Even just a basic video call. If you look at, lockdown number one, it was, the Salesforce is sitting there thinking, well, I can't go out. I can't go and see my customers. I'm not going to be able to get my target this month. Yes, you can do a video call. No, it's never the same doing a video call. I've got to do it in person. I think the world has changed that, if you don't adapt, then you will get left behind. And I think, businesses that are recruiting now people into hybrid roles from the very first day, the technology is there to be utilized. You have to be expected to sell and to be sold to utilizing the technology. You need to expect that when you call through to a call center environment, you'll be talking to somebody that is sitting in their home. It's become the norm and it's been expected. It's to be expected. But I think it comes around the behaviors and the utilization of the technology. People are a little bit fearful to adapt. Is everyone else doing it? Am I the only person doing this? Am I the one that's put a fireside background on in my video call, for example? It's people getting used to it and accepting the fact that it is okay to do it and being comfortable with, no different to sitting in your office in your chair and what's sitting behind you in your office. Do exactly the same in the environment that you're utilizing your home environment. All the wallpapers available to you to make you feel more comfortable in the call that you're within.
Yeah, I think you raised some really important points there, and Gary made some similar points about retraining people to do their jobs remotely. As you were talking, I was kind of nodding my head and agreeing with you, and that might work in a small video group like this, but in a big video group where everybody has their cameras off, you have to know to actually like use emojis or to indicate things in comments, and nodding ahead isn't really the same effect. So Gary, I want to get back to you on you said learning how to use new features, and how do companies like Zoom and Enreach and your competitors are rolling out regular features or features on a regular update pattern as part of the benefits of the cloud. How do customers stay current with what your capabilities are of your software?
So I think part of it is we have a customer success program. We work with our large customers to make sure train the trainer. So someone inside the company knows about what's coming on. Look, a lot of this stuff comes out through blogs, but we know end users don't read blogs very well. I think it's also leaders. As a leader, I find a lot of the senior leaders incorporating functionality into their calls. It doesn't have to be Brady Bunch. It can be immersive scenes where we're all sitting around a conference room table. I think Duncan hit on part of this. There is a fear. Everybody wants to come on in the basic way, and sometimes there's a fear of having a cagey background, maybe the pet or things like that. But today, I think a lot of it is going to come from leadership to show how do we leverage some of these functionalities. It's okay to bring up a whiteboard as a leader and everybody starts writing on the whiteboard together. It's okay to start a chat channel and that chat channel comes out of the meeting and we can continue working asynchronously that way. I think there is some sort of fear from the employees about this. And I think the more they get comfortable, it's like everything else. Look, I like to use this analogy. I have a Jeep, my second Jeep, 2 red buttons on the left side. Someday, after 8 years of driving Jeeps, I'll figure out what those 2 red buttons do. Okay. And that's the fear with technology today is, and I tell people, experiment, hit the different buttons, figure out how you can portray yourself a little bit differently, figure out these new leverage capabilities that'll make you have a better experience. We find most people shut off their video for one reason. There is meeting fatigue, guaranteed. They shut off the video because they don't want to look at themselves. But they don't realize that there's a feature where they can shut off self-view. You can still see me, but I can't see me. Right? The little feature there that will make it so I can still be participative in the meeting, but I'm not sitting there adjusting, primping, going like this because I'm looking at myself. Because what does studies say? And forget the number. Most of the time when we're on a video call like that, who are we looking at? Looking at ourselves.
I'm sorry, were you talking?
Right? But see, it's you're looking at yourself, right? At the end of the day. And so learning these features, we learned the big features. Now let's learn some of the small features that will give us a better experience.
I think your Jeep story would be a lot more interesting if it was one red light and one blue light.
There you
have
go.
to choose your journey, but maybe I'm mixing my metaphors. Okay, so let me ask you about budgets. You know, obviously during the pandemic, we saw a big swing toward cloud-based services, and we saw some spending toward getting people outfitted at homes. As we move, hopefully, toward a post-pandemic era, which may happen someday, what happens to IT budgets? What do you see? What do you expect to see increases, and what do you expect to see decreases? Who wants to take a pass at that one first?
Yeah, I don't mind. I think with all of it, we've seen again. I think first hit was when it was everybody has to work from home. I think it was a case of grab what equipment is around you, what's available, take it home and see whether you can set yourself up. And you had stories of people sitting there and operating and working off their ironing boards, for example. I think it's changed now. I think on the sort of second and third iteration of people being asked to work from home. But I think in the main we see that security is going to play a key part now. Obviously, you're expecting customers GDPR compliances with client information, transmitting that information from office server to home server. People there on a multitude of different broadband providers, residential broadband capabilities sitting there within existing homes. It's again, I think, tightening up on security, giving business grade broadband into those homes, business grade security into those homes that are enabling the transmission of all of that information and data to be as secure as it's in the office. So I think the original sort of IT budget and spend will reduce on office within office infrastructures, and more so will be spent, and probably even more so than it would have been from within. You're not looking at one office environment, you're looking at a multitude of people working from homes. IT expenditure is going to increase dramatically as a result if you're to be secure and to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah.
One area I know that we're going to see some reductions in is printing. During the pandemic, there was such a push toward digital transformation and so many processes. I noticed in my little world how much less I'm printing. So hopefully we'll be able to free up some of those dollars. What are your thoughts, Gary?
So I think we're going to see a shift. I don't know if there's going to be an increase in budget. I don't know if there's going to be a decrease in budget. Not this year anyway. I think this year is look, CIOs are now agent of change, right? They're transformational agents. They have to make it so that when the employees do work in a hybrid environment and you survey the employees 4 months after the pandemic is considered over, you don't want the employee to say, I'm more productive working from home, right? Because we've all upgraded our lives. I don't know about most of you, but Zoom sent me home with a 27-inch monitor. Not going to happen. Amazon sells 32-inch monitors, right? Amazon's great. Midway through the pandemic, they told me the monitor I bought was on sale for 50%. Now there's two, right? Two 32-inch 4K real estates. I'm doing multitasking all the time. We have to make it so that, one, people have the right tools at home, and companies are going to have to sponsor some of this. I can see that. No more working on the ironing board. As Duncan said, you have to give them stipends and some sort of compensation for buying a desk and things like that. They are working for the company. But two, on the infrastructure on the inside, we're going to see some changes. Like, Duncan said something interesting. We were all sent back to the office. Grab as much as you can, bring it home. They brought computers that didn't work home. They brought printers that you couldn't hook up at home and things like that. We brought a lot of stuff home that wasn't even going to work in the home environment. You know what we left on the desk? Hard phones. Because we knew those hard phones aren't going to work. So now we need to get to a software environment where I can be on any modality. I should be able to be on my phone as I'm commuting in, because right now I'm not wasting 90 minutes commuting in. But that 8 o'clock meeting is going to happen with or without me because people are still waking up. I need to be on a modality so that when I get to the office, I can switch modalities without hanging up. I need to be very fluid across modalities. I might even want to be able to take, like we have a feature where I can leave a call, switch it to my phone without announcing I'm leaving, forgetting meeting disruption. So we're going to see certain technologies be minimized, not eliminated, but minimized. Printers, right? Hard phones. We're going to see Macs go away, labor reductions, right? Because we don't need Macs anymore, right? You can sit wherever the hell you want at the end of the time. So now we're going to see, I think, a shift in what was traditional infrastructure in the companies, and traditional cost is going to come down a little bit. And what I'm going to see is supporting of hybrid and taking those reductions that were natural on one side and reinvesting in what people are going to need for hybrid working. So I think this year we're probably going to see an equalization. I don't know about an increase, but an equalization, right, of shifting cost to where it now belongs.
Let me ask, I'll start with Duncan here. Let me ask you, um, does location matter anymore? I mean, when we hiring candidates to work in our companies or, as we look at divvying up work into different teams, does location matter anymore? I mean, we already aren't supposed to consider things like race or religion or gender. Is location something that should be a factor in our evaluation process, Duncan?
I think very much so, and probably more so than ever before. It's something that I perhaps wouldn't have even thought I wouldn't have even considered that I'd be talking about, 8-9 months ago. I think, certainly for the last, 4, 5, 6 months, looking now that, this hybrid working is here to stay. The ability to go out there and hire people, hire the intelligence and the capability that you as a business require. I think it's made it easier. I think, again, if you're fully set up for hybrid working, you can pick and choose the best people to do the job and the best capability to do the job.
So I think that's a little
No
confusing
longer
there.
is.
You're saying location doesn't matter. Because I asked you, does location matter? You said yes. And so,
Sorry,
so you went,
it doesn't matter.
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sorry. So I think we're saying here is that, before it mattered, now it doesn't matter. I can go where I want and pick the intelligence that I need anywhere in the country or in the world. It's not defined to location, to town, to city, to country. I have the ability to go out. And I think as long as I provide that capability as a business, I can attract in the right type of people to work for that company.
So you mean to tell me that if you had two candidates that you were looking to hire, you're going to hire one, and you had two candidates,
Yeah.
and they were both pretty much comparable in every way, but one was on High Street, right next to your favorite fish and chip place, and the other one was, much further away, that you wouldn't favor one over the other, based on
I
location?
don't think it's a case of you would recruit if they were absolutely identical, head to head, and they were identical, I think it would be a difficult decision. But I think it is now a driving factor now where we're expanding, not just our companies, but I think the whole marketplace are expanding out and picking and choosing who they want. Location is not important anymore. But you're right. If somebody was around the corner, if it was a better capability, you would choose that person. But I think it's, again, if you're thinking for the future as a business, are we going to be located in this town, in this city for the long term? So I think choosing the right type of people for the job, location is now not as relevant as it used to be. And I think forward-thinking organizations are accepting that or beginning to realize that they can in actual fact pick better people where location is no longer as important as it used to be.
Gary, you have any thoughts on this?
So I will tell you, look, I think there's a couple of things here. One, I agree that especially with the great resignation going on, there are so many talented people, especially people that have moved away from the metro centers that are now available and looking for guaranteed hybrid work and really mostly guaranteed remote work. So I think that's fine. I think the other problem we're going to have to face is, and I think, Dave, you started on it, is we have learned to deal with so many unconscious biases in the past that we now have to deal with one more. That I think some of the people who are accepting jobs as remote workers are worried 2 years down the road when the pendulum moves, who knows which way, are they going to be treated in an unconscious bias method? So I think it's just something we have to train leaders about, is that we're making conscious decisions. We're hiring the best talent. That always is the number one rule. You hire the best talent to deliver for your company, and then teach people that even through this whole journey we're going forward, it's just one more unconscious bias we'll have to pay attention to.
All right. Well, with that, we will wrap up this session. I want to thank you all for attending and watching, and I'd like to thank my panel participants and experts for their wisdom, and we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much.